You're listening to The Extraction, conversations on the systems and strategies behind dental practice growth with Colin Ambler and Kyle Bergman. All right. Hello, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to The Extraction podcast with your co-host, Kyle Bergman, and CEO, co-founder of TeamCare Dental, Colin Ambler. We have a very special guest today, Gary Bird, founder and owner of SMC, the leading growth partner for entrepreneurial dentists and group practices. Gary, welcome to The Extraction.
What's up, guys? Good to be here, and I'm really excited to jump into this and excited to learn more about you guys and what you guys are doing. It seems pretty cool what the kind of stuff you guys are working on.
Thank you, Gary. And I'm going to hand it over to Colin in just a second. Right before we hopped on, we were all jamming a little bit. And what we're really excited about with the services that SMC National, Gary and his team provide is that we are doing this in a large part for some brands that may or may not look like competitors to SMC, but the water is warm in the practice growth space, and a lot of the pain points that your clients have, our clients are solving with tools that TeamCare provides. But let's start with you're on the Wikipedia page. It says like early upbringing. Like, who is Gary? Start wherever you'd like to with that.
Oh, wow. Who's Gary? That's pretty deep. So I was born in Colorado, and I moved onto a boat when I was 3. My dad sold his business. He had an electrical business. He sold it right before the big economic crash in the 80s. And he moved us all into a boat. My brother was 1, and my sister was actually born on the boat. And I lived on the west coast of Mexico and California for about 6 years, 7 years, everywhere from San Francisco to Catalina to all up and down Mexico. So I was homeschooled for those first couple of years. And then when I was 9, 10, I moved back up onto the mainland, and I've lived on the West Coast for most of my life. Right now, I reside in Southern California. I'm in dental totally by accident, which is, I think, about 99% of everybody who's in the dental industry, except for the clinical folks, the dentist and the hygienist. Everybody else is here by accident. No one ever says, I'm going to be in dental marketing when I grow up. No one's ever said that. So I ended up working with a bunch of different kinds of businesses, got referred to some dentists. They did very well. They referred us to more dentists. And from there, we just continued to grow. And now we solely work with dentists. We've been on the Inc. 5000 fastest growing company list 3 years in a row. And we are just like hyper focused on helping dentists grow. We have a lot of happy success stories. We also have a lot of clients that outgrew us and got bought by DSOs and, retired and those kind of things. I love that part of business. I love growing. I love helping other people grow. And one of my philosophies is give more than you get. If you give people more than you get back from them, you just tend to outperform whatever your goals are. So that is a little bit about us and what we do.
Sweet. So Gary, I know we were just getting acclimated before we got on this call, and I was doing a little homework on you this morning. I was listening to a couple podcasts of yours, and really, really great stuff. And your regimen of doing them like once a week, I mean, impressive. You guys are pumping out some content. And so I took my choice selection, and one of the comments that you said really resonated with me. And you said you were trying to figure out somewhere like direction, and you're like, well, if I start managing people, I'll be happy. And then that didn't last. And you're like, well, if I start being in sales, I'll be happy. And then you said one of the things that I love the most is like doing something incredibly hard, getting it off the ground and getting it moving. And I think that's maybe it resonated with me because I think that's really where I got into dentistry by accident, just like everyone, I guess the 99% of the other business people. My wife's a dentist, started a scratch practice and started to grow. And I came in and we were really struggling. And we took some advice from, good advisors, and we grew like a weed. We have still running today. It's associate driven practice. We have 14 operatories and a staff of about
Wow.
50 people. And that's really the birth of TeamCare. We were trying to figure out how to systematize, how to keep people motivated, how to keep people accountable for stuff. And in the spirit of getting something off the ground and making that your life's work, we really went after this as something that I think all dental practices need. So we'll talk about the TeamCare stuff, but you were mentioning something that there's a problem in dentistry, and about 80% of the practices are broken, and only 20% of the people have kind of figured it out, and those people are going extremely well. What are
Yeah,
some of those
you sound
things?
like you're in that 20%. That's awesome.
Maybe. Some days yes, some days no. It's not always as easy as it looks. Tell me what you think as what you're seeing from the industry about the 80% that are struggling. What do they encounter the most?
Yeah, so I literally talk about this every single day. So I actually do about 3 to 4 podcasts a week, and this is like the core of what I talk about, and I just find creative ways to split it apart because it's not fixed yet. And I don't see it getting fixed anytime soon. And at the root of it, basically you have dentists that are doing dentistry, which is awesome, and they're really great at it. However, they're not so great at doing the operational side of their business, and so they choose to ignore a lot of facets that are going on, and they come out of doing dentistry and they get upset about it, right? And so they get mad and they're like marketing or this or that or the other. But when you just break down the simple data, the most of the time the problem's very straightforward. And then I'll actually give solutions to this. I hate when people give problems without solutions. So I'll give you all the solutions. So let me just work through the problems. The problem is number one, 35% of calls go unanswered during normal business hours in the dental industry. Period. Well, not my team. Do you track it? What is the rate? Well, I'm really good. That's not an answer rate. Like, I'm sorry, you're probably close to that 35%. You might even be worse. And the reason, and it's very simple. Like, the reason for it is most calls come in when offices are least staffed. So even if you have 2 people at the front desk, you're still missing a lot of phone calls because most calls come in the morning when people are driving into work, when your team is calling in 15 minutes late all the time because they're dropping off their kids at school and they're stuck in traffic or they're getting Starbucks or whatever. And then they come in at lunch when you tell everybody to go get fajitas together and do a team builder. And then they call in the afternoon on the way home when your team is all trying to get out of the office. So that's when the bulk of calls come in. You can go look this up. This is very well documented. And so we miss most new patient calls, just right off the bat. So if you're spending $10,000 on marketing, you're losing $3,500 of that down the drain. And you can't call them back. Like, people go, oh, my team calls them back when they can.
They're
They
gone.
already moved. Like, we've all done this before, right? We go on Yelp. We go, I want to get my carpets clean. We contact 10 businesses. And then we sit there and wait for the first one to call, to get back to us or answer their phone. And then we go with them. And then what do we do with everybody else who calls us? We just ghost them. I don't need your services anymore. And that's what happens in dental. So 35% go unanswered. Just stick a pin in that and remember that one. Then when you do pick up the phone, the team's conversion rate with marketing patients that are qualified, okay, they convert it. That's industry average. Now, dentists will say, I already know what they're saying right now as they listen to this. Yeah, Gary, but not my team. I listen to them. They're really good. Okay, what is your conversion rate for marketing new patients? If you don't know that, you're probably right around 50%. And the reason this one's so confusing is because you can your patient referrals that are calling in converted about 100%, and your marketing patients are converting about 50%. And a healthy dental practice is about 50% marketing, 50% patient referrals, give or take, okay, on either side, 60-40 either side. And so what that means is if you're converting one at 100% and one at 50%, and I know dentists are good at math, right? That means your blended ratio is about 75%, which is not that bad. However, the section that you're spending your money on is bleeding, and the patient referrals will convert no matter who answers the phone. It almost doesn't matter, right? So you're losing the growth. You're losing the part that everybody else is losing. And it's not like those patients just disappear. They end up at another office. And that does not count unqualified patients. I'm removing those from the conversion rate. Medicaid or HMOs or calling from another city, they're too far away, or calling for ortho and you don't offer ortho. That doesn't count in that conversion rate. And so now if we just do those two things, just those two, those are the simple ones, you are losing 80% of your marketing new patients before they get to your front door. But then it gets worse. The average time to appointment in dental floats between 2 and 3 weeks right now. That's the average time for a new patient to get into a dental office. The problem with that is the average no-show rate for marketing when you put them that far out floats it between 30 and 40%. So then you wonder, so I'll close it, and then I would love your thoughts on this.
No.
So then people wonder, why am I not growing? I've been spending, and they look at their PMS and they look at all these dashboards and look at everything, and they go, I've been spending $5,000 a month on marketing. I've had 40 new patients every single month forever, and my practice is shrinking, and my cost of goods are going up. Insurance reimbursements are going down and I'm paying my team more and I'm making less. But my retention rate is 98% in my analytic dashboard. Things bad wrong there with those numbers. That's where 80% of offices are at.
Yeah, I think I would concur. I see that stuff. I think I'm dying to hear you talk about, you have a product called Trackable. You speak with such passion and insight about all this stuff. I imagine that it's very well data backed. And so I'm interested to see how you get that stuff. And then I'd also like to hear, what's the solution? It's like, how do these people get out of this hamster in a wheel?
Great question. Okay, so yeah, we track all of this, but all those numbers that I pulled are also verifiable through other sources as well. So these are my numbers absolutely align with that, but you can go and look these up. They're the average time to appointment, the ADA. If you talk to like Reach or Patient Prism on the phone side or Mango, they'll tell you the same thing because they track all this stuff too.
Yeah, we actually
So
we do something similar. We observe when an appointment gets created and then the duration until when it gets delivered. And we see the average across practices too, be about 2-3 weeks.
yeah,
So,
which is a problem. You can't, it literally just nukes everything inside your practice. So, how do we fix this? So, answering the phone. So, you just have to answer the phones and you have to beef up the front desk at the times that are appropriate. Now, there's different ways to do that. So, number one, you can just staff it up with humans. That's expensive. You can also staff it up with third parties that are like outsourcing that will help you, but they're your employees, they're your people, but they live out of the country, but they speak really good English. That is a great solution. If you're going to do that, you have to train and you have to do that properly and those kind of things, but that's how you fix it. So you can probably fix this problem with around, you won't get rid of it, but you'll be around 10% unanswered instead of 5 to 10% unanswered instead of 35. That's huge. That lift alone absolutely transforms everything. Then from there, now you're going to be answering more phone calls, but your team's still converting at a really low rate. So then from there, what you need to do is you need to train them. I have basic training on this that we literally give away for free and we use it for all of our clients. It works like gangbusters. It will absolutely get you into that like 75 to 85% conversion rate. The biggest culprits are how much does something cost? And do you take my insurance? That's why most people lose new patients. Those are really simple questions they answer. So how much? You just use redirecting questions because we don't want to quote people over the phone if we haven't diagnosed them. It's like, imagine this. Imagine you call a mechanic and you're like, hey, my car's going, it's a Volvo. How much is that to fix? They're going to be like, dude, get down here. We need to take a look at it. You know what I mean? So dentistry takes these two really weird positions. They take either, will never give you prices over the phone, which everybody's like, dude, we can't trust you then. Or they say, oh yeah, that's $500. And they're like, okay, thanks, bye. And dentists go, well, they're shoppers. We didn't want them anyways. Well, everybody's a shopper. Every dentist that I've ever met is actually a shopper. Did you know that? Every single one of them. They always ask me for my prices. How much is marketing, Gary? So everybody's a shopper until they're not. And so it's really important that you train your team how to use redirecting questions. And it's so simple. I literally have a whole list of them. How much is a dental implant? Hey, great. I would love to help you with that. Let me just ask you a couple of questions. Is the tooth impacted? How many roots does it have? What's the bone density like there? Oh, you don't know? Okay, no worries. We actually have a consultation. We can get you in right away. What works better, morning or afternoon? No one can give you that accurate pricing without that information. You can do that for everything. How much is a filling? How many surfaces is it on? Like you can literally do it for every single thing. And nobody knows any of those questions and you can't answer it without that information. So once your team gets that down, these patients just start booking. And then the insurance one is, do you take my insurance? And there's different ways to handle that depending on what kind of office you are. But we have that all scripted out as well. And so now you're converting. So now you're only missing 10% of your calls. And now you're converting at 80%. So now you're getting 70% of those opportunities through rather than losing 80% of your opportunities. From there, scheduling is using a hybrid like block scheduling. So most dental offices don't use block scheduling, which I think is crazy. So this is kind of funny. And we talk about this a lot with my team. In my company, if you're an existing client, you're on one calendar, right? So they get booked on a certain calendar and it's over here. And potential new clients get booked on a totally different calendar. And the reason for that is that we know that we always have to have capacity for both. If at any time we have capacity for one and not for another, it's a huge problem. We're either not growing or we're shrinking if either of those ever happen, right? And you guys run your company the same way, right, Colin?
We do. I was actually going to ask, I was going to talk to you about capacity. I don't want to derail your current thought train, but I think One of the questions that we start to face as like imagine I'm imagining one of your clients starts to do this very well, and their success rates go way up, and they start to fill the schedule very well. Does that create the next problem that they're at a capacity limit, and that it's like they need to grow, they need to extend their hours, they need to find their next associate, they need to do something
Of
because
course,
they've
yeah.
filled up their capacity, and how
Of
much do
course,
you
that's
see
the
that going
goal.
on? Yeah,
Yeah,
of
yeah,
course.
absolutely. That's always the goal. That's always the goal. However, most dentists are not at that point yet. And they're even hiring associates, they're hiring people, but they're not ready to do that just by doing block scheduling. So let me present a problem that a lot of the dentists have, especially seasoned dentists. They have full calendars on their hygiene of existing patients that are healthy. You've already fixed all their problems. They're great patients. You love them. You want them to come back, but you come in all day to this hygiene schedule and you see, 5, 10, 15, 20 patients, and most of them are healthy. And you're putting unhealthy patients who need your help today, you're putting them 3 weeks out. That's the problem. So what do we have to do is you have to create block scheduling that separates the new patients from existing patients. So the new patients always have time to get in today and tomorrow. That's it. And the existing patients don't feel like you're shunning them. They're just like, they don't care. They're 6 months out, get my
Yeah,
cleaning. 6 months. Like my teeth are relatively healthy. It's just, I go back and get my teeth cleaned every 6 months. And every once in a while, there's a little problem, but they've largely fixed all my problems.
yeah.
So
No, and you
that,
can wait, and we see that all the time. We see that the returning patients crowd out the new patients
yes,
unless you create capacity somehow. But I love that concept of earmarking, blocking out that dedicated capacity so that you always have room for new patients, and let the healthy people get pushed out 3 weeks. It's like they have less sense of urgency, all that. So how
they
do you?
booked those appointments 6 months ago. They
Yeah,
don't
right,
care. When I
right.
redo
Yeah,
my
no,
recare, I don't care.
right, of course. So how do you like to, if for the listeners out there, if you're looking at a standard schedule, do you dedicate one column off to it's always for the new patients? How should practice owners maybe be thinking about that?
There's different ways to do it. I've seen a lot of different people, and you know how dentists are with their PMS and their schedules. They get absolutely insane. So I'm not going to like jump into that realm. However, I have a whole training on this that is free and that you can go through and actually look at how to do block scheduling and then figure out how to make it work for you. Bottom line is you just have to have open spots today and tomorrow. That's it. Now, the reason dentists don't like doing this one is because they don't trust their marketing company yet to be able to produce the results to fill those spots. And then then they feel like they're sitting around more than they should be. So
Hmm.
I get both. I get that. Like I understand that. But you got to fix these problems in order. First, answer your phone. That's going to create a new problem. Now we got more opportunities, but we're not converting them. Now convert. But you have to this is where it gets tricky. You have to create scheduling opportunities to convert,
Totally.
right? You like the second you start being able to convert people today and tomorrow, your conversion actually goes up. So the first step is answer. Second is like train on the phones and fix your schedule to have those opportunities.
Yeah. I love it. Let's shift the gears here, maybe something where we start to overlap on stuff. Tell me what you see out there with things related to staff sabotage. Do you encounter people that, it's like, well, doc's running around all day doing fillings, root canals, whatever. Maybe there's some offices where people are unaccountable, and the staff is telling their doctor, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. Maybe they get to a point where, they are running, but they slack off. It's like, how much do you see staff out there taking advantage of the situation?
I don't know, man. I mean I'm work remote, but I think everybody has some of that in their company. But I think it boils down to misaligned incentives, and I think you'll probably like this. I think of it this way. I just filmed a podcast today actually about this is where imagine me playing a football game and I'm a player in the football game and I'm on the offense, but I don't have a scoreboard and I don't know which direction I'm going. Football would be chaotic. Even if you trained every week, you did all the same practicing, all everything, it would be chaotic. But what happens when you have a scoreboard and a direction, which comes from leaders, is that everything that you just practiced for, it brings everybody into alignment. The tight end knows what to do now. The quarterback knows what to do. Like everybody knows what to do now because we know what the mission is and we know what direction we're going. And so I believe like team incentives is how you align that. Now, people hear that and they go, I don't want to pay people more money. And it's like, okay, you need to figure out how to give team incentives in alignment to where you want to go. Okay. So this is where I've messed up on this before. So I'm very sympathetic towards it. It's like, cool, let's just give people bonuses and that's really cool. Right. until you're like, stink, I don't have any money. We just gave all our money away. So it's like, you have to figure out how to get the team incentivized to get to your goal. So when we get to X goal, then you get a bonus from that. And when you do that, all of a sudden, all your training, all those little things like, hey, don't do that, do this, all of a sudden people just start doing it, and even better than you wanted them to, because they know the mission. So I look at it, when you're having those type of problems, it's typically just a void of leadership and a lack of aligned incentives.
Yeah, I love that analogy of the football team. What are
is
some of the
so good.
Yeah, works great. So what
Yeah.
do you like? What are some of these things that you've seen be successful in your worlds with aligning incentives? It's like, where do owners want to go, and what are the mechanisms they use to get their team to go with them?
So I'm super limited on this just because I'm the growth guy, right? So I think very much in a very small box and a certain specific way. So this is not all encompassing for sure. But in my world, it's like, okay, well, how much production or collections do you want? Set that goal. And then who do we need to incentivize to help us get to that goal? And then from there, the doctors typically have their own incentive program that they're very incentivized with, but you gotta dial them in as well on their own incentives, and that's going to push that whole goal up. And then hygiene is a big one because hygienists now make so much money, and if all they're doing is cleaning teeth and they're not referring treatment back to you, then you got a major problem, major black hole there. So you got to have that aligned in there. And then from there, you want to make sure that the front desk is super motivated to answer and convert new patients. So typically it's like, hey, if we just get to this new patient goal, then X bonus, right? And that solves conversion, that solves answering the phone, because now everybody's motivated to get as many new patients in. And the reason that one's so important is because the front desk doesn't actually have an incentive most of the time to get more new patients. It's actually just more work for them. And you got
Right.
to remember, they got patients checking in, checking out. They have the
Yeah.
doctor and all the team yelling at them for one thing or another. And then they have the phones. So which is the easiest to ignore out of that? The phones. It's like a long shot. And it's more work. Like, I can do my job here that you're asking me for, plus answer the phones or not answer the phones. Like, it's very easy choice, right? The other thing is the front desk is the lowest paid team member and usually the youngest as well. And they're your first salesperson. In every other organization out there, probably in your company and my company, the highest paid people are the salespeople. But in
Yeah.
dental, the first salesperson is the lowest paid and the youngest and the least incentive or no incentive at all. So if you can get them aligned on your new patient goal and get them triggering on that, that's huge. And then typically I like to bonus one person to get me Google reviews. Google reviews like works for everything. Like, if you have good Google reviews, you'll get more new patients. All of your marketing will work better. I don't care what it is. If it's digital, like what I do, or if it's physical, like postcards or billboards or anything like that. Like, they all go and look at your Google reviews. So that's going to all work better. You're going to get a better ROI. You're also going to get better team members, meaning when you go to hire, what is the first thing they're going to all go look at? Google reviews. If you have more than everybody else, you're going to get the best of the best that want to work with you first. You're also going to rank higher for SEO because it helps with SEO. So you're going to get more free marketing new patients. It also helps you sell the practice. Someday when you go to sell the practice and you have the most Google reviews, you think that's going to play a little bit of an impact on like who you're selling to versus the guy that has no Google reviews? Of course, right? Like, it's, hey, my practice is more established, that we have more happy patients, more happy team members, like, we're just better. So Google reviews, I would say, is probably the number one thing when it
Sure.
comes to marketing that you should 100% always be like bonusing on and always doing initiatives on. There's a bunch of different ways to do that, and I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on that as well.
Gary, what if there was a way that you could create automated incentives for team members based on Google reviews that came in? Now, one of the problems is that, Jane Doe comes into the office and sees three people and she leaves and has a great experience and she says, Noble Dentistry was awesome and everyone there is great and I give it a 5 star. Well, no one's going to go in and say, well, who did Jane Doe actually meet with? And that's all incredibly manual. But at TeamCare, we created, and when I say we, I mean Colin, created a intelligent review system where we can, based off of the PMS, tag everyone that interacted with Jane Doe and give them a micro bonus for the review that Jane provided. And we're doing this today, and practices are using it. So it's so cool to like. People that listen to our podcast a lot might be like, they gave Gary a script and he just set them up with this alley oop. And I want everyone to know we just met Gary and he is preaching So it's really cool that a lot of what you're talking about, there's a lot of manual lift to it, but what we do and what we're really our superpower is incentive automation. So
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I love it. Yeah, no, if there's a way to do that, a better way to do that, I'm always game for that. Especially if you can gamify it. I know we joked about like betting markets and stuff before we hit the record button, but like if you can gamify your team into performance, like that is a huge motivator that I think most people just don't understand.
Yeah, I think I heard you talking on one of your other episodes earlier. There's certain people out there that feel like there's certain parts of their job description. They're getting asked to do things that aren't their job. You know, they're getting asked. They were signed up to be a clinical hygienist to give great patient care. But my doc's asking me to make reactivation calls. My doc's asking me to solicit Google reviews. My doc's asking me to do stuff that's outside of this realm, and you don't pay me to do that. And so I think that's where we really recognize this opportunity that was like, you know what? There is some stuff that you don't get paid to do. But if you do them, we want to pay you because you went above and beyond, and someone else didn't. And so we've gone to the end and back on this, and we've created these systems that people get revarded for doing stuff around their office and giving credit where credit's due. And Google reviews are one of them, and it's been really wildly popular. And we review offline. We match up who's involved in that experience, and in the same day, they get $5 into their automatic payout account. It's cool. And
That's sick.
there's an email that goes out. It recognizes them amongst their whole team. Hey,
How do
Mrs.
you match it? How do you match it?
So we find Mrs. Smith. She's the one that posted the Google review. We find her as the author on Google, and then we look her up in the PMS system, and we find that Mrs. Smith was here within a couple days. We kind of match it up, and then we say, okay, well, which doctor did she see? Which hygienist did she see? Who was the front desk? And so we look at who she was working with during her patient visit, and then we credit those people, those team members.
Anybody who touches that patient gets credit.
That's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Everyone.
So
Yeah.
are you paying? So then you might be paying five. You decide the dollar amount, or the office decides the dollar amount.
You decide the dollar amount. You decide whether you want, let's say it's $5. You could split the $5 between whoever gets it, or you could pay out $5 to everyone who's involved. And, you know, a typical office,
Can
I'd
you
say
set it like a
average.
bigger goal? Can you say, hey, once we hit this goal, then you guys all get like $500 each?
Oh, yeah, goal-based incentives.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah, I do both. Yeah. So what I've seen work the best is like typically it's with one person, but that's just for a control mechanism. If you can get more people involved, great. But it's like, okay, if we have 300 Google reviews at our office. Everybody else in our market has 1,000. So we want to be the number one person on Google. That's our end goal, but we're not going to get there this year. So what we're going to do is we want to go from 300 to 600 over the next 3 months. So I'm going to give you X amount of dollars for every Google review that we get if you break over this 300 threshold over this time. And like people just go nuts for that because it's a big, at the end of the 3 months, it's like a $1,500 check. You know what I mean? And then doctors hear that and they go, oh, and then I go, if I came to you right now for a service and I said I could double your Google reviews for $1,500, would you pay it? They're like, yeah, I guess I would. And it's like, well, cool. Then
yeah.
it's
And
easy.
and
It's a no brainer.
And we see a really like wonderful cultural impact too, where people are just proud. You know, they give great experiences, and left unrecognized, they just feel like, what's the point? But they get announced to their peers, they get rewarded, and they want to keep doing it more and more. It's like it's a great little flywheel effect.
That's so cool.
One last thing, and we'll include this in the show notes. We did a recent aggregate study of 144 practices that we work with, and one of our creme de la creme incentives is $10 for reactivating a overdue hygiene patient. And like you said, Gary, a lot of practices are remiss to bonus their team for things that they, quote, think that they should already be doing based on their job description, end quote. And so we took 144 practices that said, yeah, if you get a new patient in here who otherwise would never come back, we'll give you $10 for that. Not a completely new patient, but someone who is overdue for hygiene. And what we saw on average was that there was I'm going to be conservative because I think it was more, but a 38x ROI. For every dollar invested into an incentive, the practice made $38. And so
cool.
it's really compelling. And we could see this at scale that when you are able to give your team members a little bit more, everyone wins.
Yeah,
which
I totally agree.
You know, you say, and you're speaking from data that you see, and we did this study recently because we wanted to show everyone, hey, this is really happening every day.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's really cool. $36
think-
is a lot. The way I'd present that is if I built a machine that every time you put $1 in, you get $36 back, would you do it? And people like, yeah. And then the only question would be, how many times would you do it? And it's like, until the machine stopped working, right?
Hey,
Until we
very
ran out of
master of
operators.
analogies and framing.
Yeah.
Gary talked about some really cool stuff here. Gary, what's the best way for people to find you on here, and they're interested about growth and how to manage inflows and staffing related stuff? What's the best way for people to find you?
Yeah, I usually am arguing with dentist on Facebook, so that's probably the best place to find me is the Gary Bird on Facebook. You can reach out to me. My company is smcnational.com. I also just launched a new podcast. I don't know if you guys have seen this one yet. It's called My Dental Playbook. I had a client and a friend of mine who owns a practice, and he was at about $200,000 when he started with us. Had a lot of struggles with marketing, and we were able to help him grow to over $500,000 in production in 12 months. And so what we've been doing is just every week documenting that journey. And he's just sharing like, here's what sucked and here's how I fixed it. And then we give away, I build resources to help support him, then help support our listeners as well.
Awesome.
That's cool. So it's like what was that like really viral podcast type where like they just read an episode, or it's a series where you just read like a show. So you guys are basically doing episode 1 of this playbook podcast is your friend's practice and how you 2x'd it, essentially, right?
Yeah, exactly. We just
Cool.
were like, okay, so over the last 12 months, here's what happened. Like, why did that happen? And it's
Cool.
like, well,
Very
here's what he's very vulnerable in dental. Most people don't talk about the bad stuff. You know what I mean? It's common. Like if you go, like you guys are in the SaaS world, right? So it's like it's easy to go find people and all the horror stories, and like people are very transparent. Like this sucks. Like I know people don't do that, especially about themselves. It's like very uncommon. And so once I saw that characteristic in him, I was like, dude, we got to do a podcast together. And he was totally game for it because it helps people. And so he's just like, dude, this is what I didn't understand. Well, here's how I figured it out. And here's the tool that I used to do it. And so it's been pretty popular so far. We're about, I think, 6 weeks in and in about like 3,000 or 4,000 downloads already. So that's pretty good for the little dental
Awesome.
space. At
It's
least for us,
awesome.
it is.
We're actually in like my wife's office. We do about 550 in production a month, $550,000.
Told you were in the top 20%. You tried to
Well,
brush me off, bro.
well, I like to be a little modest,
You're in the
but
top 5%.
we believe that we should be at like 800. We really do. We feel like there's just like, it's all about levels.
I've seen a couple
So
offices do that before. You guys do IV sedation?
no. I mean, I think so maybe Gary, we can connect, and I think, we're going to start to document some things in public, and like maybe
That's cool.
our vulnerability won't come through as much. You're like, yo, you're sitting at 550, shut up. But
They will.
we'll be on
People
the
will. Dennis will absolutely rip you apart. That's kind of par for the course.
well, we'll get on Facebook and let the Gary Bird rip us up too.
No, I try to be nice. I try to be nice to people, but I do get yelled at a lot. So I'm regularly told on Facebook that I'm the problem and reason that dental is where we're at. So not insurances, not DSOs, not private equity, but Gary Bird. So I'll take it.
Wow. Well, Gary, thank you so much for joining us on The Extraction. It was a
Yeah,
pleasure.
absolutely. My pleasure, man. This is awesome. Good job. I'm excited
Thanks,
to learn
Gary.
more about this.
Thank you for listening to The Extraction with Colin Ambler and Kyle Bergman. Read episode notes and transcripts at teamcaredental.com.